So as we dive deeper into the challenges and opportunities of green tech, we'll hear from experts across different sectors in the next panel discussion. So what are the real limitations of green tech today? Where do you see the biggest incentives? And how can we avoid the trap of thinking that tech alone will save us? Here to answer these questions, please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists. Florent Héroguel, co-founder and co-CEO of Bloom Biorenewables. Amael, the CEO of Resilio, and Jessica, founder of the Regenerative Technology Project. All right, we have many questions from the audience that I really want to address. So, but to set a bit of context, and before I get to that, and we have a lot of people joining us this time. Okay, so Amael and Florent, you are both sustainable entrepreneurs. But sustainability is a very broad concept nowadays, right? So Amael, what does sustainable tech look like in your startups? What trends and challenges are you seeing in the tech impact space?
So I must say that we specifically focus on information technology at Resilio. So this IT digital part, we're not reusing concrete. We're not doing amazing chemicals out of organic matter. We're just looking to this hard tech of digital products. In our space, sustainability is not a known topic for the main belief that everyone thinks that it will save, that IT, the digital world, will save all our shitty planet problems, which is unfortunately not the case. So the current trend is more on some countries to discover that the belief we had is not that true and that we may need to act also on a practical level.
All right. What about you, Florent?
So basically at Bloom, we are making sustainable products without compromise on price and quality. And to do this, instead of using fossil fuels, we use plants to make products from fragrances to plastics. And talking about trends, what I see around is what is very hot topics are aviation fuels or carbon capture. And the main goal is just trying to sustain the living standards. So can we continue living the same way, or even better or worse? Can we offer the whole planet the same living standards? So quite away from what we heard this morning. Yeah.
All right. And Jessica, you've spent a lot in the US, especially in Silicon Valley. And I want you to address the following question, which has been very popular among our audience. What should we think about Bill Gates' argument that it's better to focus on tech solutions to climate change and a strong economy to finance them rather than degrowth and sufficiency?
I went up to this question too. I think that technology is only part of our solutioning. And I think as some of those with the most power in our society, particularly power that has been derived and monetized through technology, it's not surprising that some of our billionaires and leaders would be promoting technology. We need to, however, look at the ways in which technology can, yes, help us address some of our climate issues, but also lots of other issues, many systemic issues, biodiversity, poverty, access, equity. But technology is not the only story. And of course, it probably goes without saying that those of us, the bobo, as well mentioned before, who are making these decisions are probably further away from realizing just how sometimes technology is not the only solution. So it's not surprising that we hear a pro-technology and a kind of techno-solutionist perspective from those in power, particularly those that have derived power from tech. But also there's a proximity issue there of who actually has agency to decide and who decides who decides. There is a need for more participation in how we even understand and think about sufficiency, how we even understand and design and apply and use and reuse our technologies.
All right. And Amael, one interesting question here is that, well, we have people from many different sectors coming here today. We have from finance, from health, everybody who wants to be sustainable or sufficient, but they simply don't know how to. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here in this conference, right? They came here to know all the secrets on how to be more sufficient. So how can we make it desirable then? How can we make it less costly?
The question is hard. I don't have a perfect answer. I would say that the first point is to really try to do something we believe in. So it may sound a bit cryptical. The point is that when we try to do something more sufficient, as we just explained, we're a bit out of the streamline. So if you don't have this belief that you're doing something which is great, in my case, trying to improve the IT industry, which is one of the most polluting on earth, if you don't believe in what you do, to wake up every day and try to go in what you believe is the right direction, you have definitely no chance. I spent the last 6 months working on what drives people within an organization to create a change, and the personal belief and strength and energy you can put in is your main strength, actually. So I would say that this is probably the first point. And then the second one, which is the bad part of the answer, is that there is no easy answer. So don't look for ready-to-think advices that you just need to repeat and you do so and not this, and that's it. My job is environmental analyst. So we're just answering question, is it better to have a glass bottle or a metal bottle? Is it better to have something in the freezer or in a can? If you do so, I mean, we're doing so for IT, but if you do so, the only answer you will ever have is, it depends. So no easy answer, just stay critical.
All right, what about you, Florent? Let's talk about the current incentives driving green tech, because there has to be any incentive, and I think we should talk also about the policy perspective. How can we incentivize green tech, or and is there a difference also from tech for green, for example?
So talking about incentive and pressure, there is a first type of pressure which is coming from us, from the consumers. And this is why some of the corporates have been taking some pledges, some commitments to be neutral by 2030, 35, 2050, I don't know. But this is a very weak pressure. Most likely, most of these corporates will fail reaching these milestones, but we will just keep buying the products. Some of them will succeed. Let's be a bit optimistic. So this is a very weak pressure, and there is another pressure which is much stronger, is regulations, and we see that a lot of our customers, actually, they are moving fast, they are taking risk because they have no other solution if they want to keep selling products, and this is very strong, and this is very good news for us because we move from being good to have solutions to be a must-have solution. So definitely regulations is a stronger pressure to them.
And well, you also have interesting experience working with technology funding, like the one from Bill Gates. So do you find that there's enough focus on the responsible use of resources?
So, I mean, this I've been mentioned before. I mean, specifically in the US, sufficiency is not trendy. I mean, if you can afford something, just get it. Otherwise, that means you are poor. So yeah, that's not easy to implement sufficiency solutions there, but there are still a number of initiatives which are promoting better use of resources, and breakthrough energy from Bill Gates is definitely one of them. But really better use of resources, maybe not yet into sufficiency solutions.
Okay. Jessica, we have one question here from the audience. Do you think it's important or possible for well-established businesses to begin using sustainable technologies that would change their business model, such as non-renewable energy companies?
Potentially. Again, I think we can't begin with the technology. Embedded in any business model and any technology is a sense of values and principles and intentionality, and those inform the business models. Those also inform the finance models and the governance models. All of that sits underneath any technology. So if we're looking at where to implement what, I think it's really important that organizations, entrepreneurs, founders, investors are starting with, if you like, the soil of an implementation, of a problem solving, of looking at how can we support sufficiency through innovation. And then also look, once we do implement this, what's going on? What are the impacts? What are the implications? What are the ways in which this renewable technology is supporting certain systems, like energy systems, but maybe undermining other systems, like community systems or power inequities? It depends. But I think implementing any technology has to sit in this sort of broader, well, complexity. It has to sit in life itself in order to ascertain, is this the right solution, and how might we tweak it to better fit the needs of people and planet?
And Amael, how are you taking sufficiency a step further in your endeavors, for example? Anything that you can tell us?
That's quite hard. I mean, I would take an example of something I know quite well, which is the digital world. This is a world that has been characterized in the last 30 years by this infinite everything, infinite connection, infinite data, infinite amount of content. This is the very American way of life of sky is the limit and there is no limit. Actually, in this world, coming with this sense that we may stop at a moment is what we see as sufficiency, in fact. And it's very interesting, but because the digital in companies is supposed to be just cost that company try to reduce. I can tell you that they never try to reduce it. I mean, they think they do, but in the end they don't, else they would not have act as they did in the last 30 years. So trying to say that we will stop at a moment, so we'll stop having the fastest website, we'll stop having the last technology of everything, and starting to think, do we need it? And can't we just live with what we have, is maybe the most difficult thing we have to share with our customer. And this is where also a lot of training in academy and awareness came to get the people starting thinking those questions.
All right. Jessica, I want to know how you are taking sufficiency at the next level in your endeavors. Is there a specific example that you're tackling?
So what I really focus on is research around this topic and around looking at how technologies can support restoration and resilience, not just kind of net zero, doing less harm, but how do we think about and design technologies and really our whole systems for regeneration, for taking a page from the natural world, if you like, and applying it to the designs of our technologies. Now, actually, nature has some wisdom here. 3.8 billion years of research and development has created actually one of the most efficient engineering systems in the world. We can look all through the natural world for incredible efficiencies. So translating what that looks like, what is biomimicry for energy systems, or what is, as you're doing, waste to value. There is no trash in nature. Everything is recirculated and recycled. So, you know, this is the work that we're doing, kind of developing this research and working with organizations of all sizes to begin to bring this into how they design. But we can look at very simple examples. I mean, for instance, you know, circularity is a good proxy for one of these ways that circulation is happening in our economy. There's an organization I think is quite interesting called Back Market. Back Market, some of you may know this. This is essentially a digital marketplace for refurbished and upcycled appliances, technologies, smartphones, etc. They handle, as a marketplace, the refurbishment process, the certification, so that if you are buying a new smartphone, which tends to be 70% less than a brand new smartphone from the manufacturer, which has equity implications in and of itself, that you can trust that this device is reliable. So it also makes it accessible, and it helps recirculate those parts and goods back into the market. This is a 90% reduction in emissions of not having to mine, you know, net new virgin materials because they're keeping devices in circulation. And this is a model that's quite profitable. It's a model that, by being this sort of central, I guess, you know, mediator of this this double-sided marketplace would be able to plug into existing, material supply chains for all sorts of different electronics.
Now, I want to go to Florent, and also maybe your input as well, Jessica, since you come from the US. How will next week's US election can impact green tech worldwide?
Bigly, as you would say. Yeah, I think, this country has a very strong influence, so this will impact very much what will happen next. So, yeah.
How can it impact you, for example?
We get quite some funding from the US, so I think this is direct impact on the funding, but also on policies. There is a lot of lobbying from the US to direct policies, so they could just go backward in time in terms of the progress we did in the past years, yeah, if anything goes wrong.
What about you, Amael? How can it impact you?
Don't think it would impact us that much. Maybe probably because most of our business in this sustainability belief in IT is raising in Europe. So most of our project and clients are in Europe or our EU team. We already have very much difficulties to discuss with large US players because they're not aware and they don't want to hear about what we say. So I don't think it would affect us that much. Maybe it can improve the situation in a way, but I can't see it going really worse because the EU laws are already passed for those which require action.
What about you, Jessica? How can it impact your research?
I think what we're looking at in the US are two very different pathways. And setting my research aside, it could radically influence the ecosystems around climate investment, around biodiversity investment, around technology investment. I mean, even just taking one little piece of philosophies around research and development, there are very different philosophies of what would we be funding in terms of R&D? Would it be, for example, military instrumentation, or would it be, for example, decarbonization? Those are potentially very different. And then, of course, there is the cultural, the political, the political economic implications of two very different perspectives on what collaboration looks like, on what a future looks like. It's amazing that in 2024, a campaign slogan is "Drill, baby, drill." So I think we will find out, but I think both directions have very different implications for the ecosystem.
Final question, as we're running out of time. As we look into the future, I would love to hear what each of you really need to make green tech a driving force for sustainability. What's missing right now, and how do we get there? Let's start with you, Amael.
So what's missing right now is understanding that technology pollutes, point. That it do cause harm to the environment. And this is what we miss in our job, to people to understand that no, it will not save the planet by design, because it causes harm. And how do we get there? I don't know. I'm focusing my day on informing people and giving them numbers and values to rational people for them to try to understand what's behind. It works to some extent, so I believe this is some way.
Okay. Florent?
So about what is missing, I think technologies are not missing. I mean, we see it on campus every single day. There is a new technology popping up. So technologies are here. And also, as a sustainable entrepreneur, I don't need more subsidies. I mean, what I need is that us as consumers, that we rethink, and this has been said before, we rethink what do we really need to be happy. And I think green technologies are just waiting for people to realize that sufficiency just make you happier.
I would say ecosystemic finance and investment. What we may have finance today in climate tech. It's about, in the US, it's about $6 billion this year so far. That's relative to $38 billion in AI. But it is for single point solutions. You have all the carbon capture companies competing against each other. What we also need is finance that supports an ecosystem, that supports a system to collaborate, to share information, to learn from one another, to support other systems within, for example, that community or that energy infrastructure. investing in only point solutions is a challenge to creating those lighthouses, those precedents, which are what inspire others, those who are waiting to see, well, what happens with this crazy pilot? I need to see what the precedent looks like. And having this kind of investment that de-risks and supports a broader set rather than a single solution, this is really important and it's really missing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this invigorating discussion. Time has run out, and we need to continue with the rest of the day. Thank you so much.